Hello and welcome to Family Tech, where you get to be the tech expert of your home. I'm excited because my friend recently fell for an Instagram scam. And, I feel like I've taught my friends pretty well, and still it happens. And it was funny because it was two of my friends, like in the same week. It was the same exact scam. It ran rampant through like my neighborhood and friends group. And so I did a reel about the scams, the Instagram scam. And it went super viral. There's like 250, almost 300,000 views on that reel. And I'm like, you know who I need to talk to about online scams? And that is my friend, the secure dad. And so, Andy, tell us about yourself. I know you've already been on my podcast once before.
Mhm.
So, we were mainly talking about DIY home security at that point. But this one is a really great topic for us to cover as well. So, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you've got going on.
Sure. I always like talking with you, Sarah, because I always appreciate your perspective. You're just like me. You want to help families to feel empowered to take care of themselves. And I think that is awesome. So it's good to be sitting down and talking with you again today about all that. By the way, Sarah's been on my show at least twice.
Yeah.
She's been on the Secure Dad podcast. So my name is Andy Murphy, and I created the Secure Dad back in 2016. And I try to help families live safer, happier lives at home, in public, and online. I really started out doing home security stuff. And then I started realizing how much of our online digital life really does affect what we do in real life. And so I've kind of branched out into that area. And so I started looking for experts. Who can I listen to? Who can I learn from? And Sarah from Family Tech is one of the people that I like to learn from.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I like to learn. She. Andy's got a ton of resources on his website, so definitely go check out thesecuredad.com. Just some like downloads and really awesome guides. So definitely check all of that out. But let's get into the kind of the meat of what we're wanting to talk about today, and that is online scams. So, what are some of the most popular scams that you like, and especially recently, are seeing people fall for frequently?
The thing with scams, no matter what format they are, whether it's an email, it's a text, it's digital, or it's somebody calls you on the phone, you get a letter in the mail. It is all simply just breaks down to somebody wants to take something from you, and they will usually kind of tell you what that is by whatever angle they're using to social engineer you into complying with whatever it is that information is, whether it's your phone number, your IP address, whatever it is that they want. They're going to try to manipulate you the best way that they can in order to get that. So a lot of people think about the technology behind these things and think, oh, it's terrible. Oh, there's these AI voice scams that are going around telling people that my child has been kidnapped. That rarely happens. So just take the technology out of it and just understand that there is a person somewhere that wants something from you, and take the technology out, and it's so much easier for people to understand. They feel more empowered to defend themselves. So don't worry about the technology, don't worry about that sort of thing. Worry about what kind of information am I going to be giving away. Like your viral reel about the scam that was going around on Instagram. Honestly, I don't see a whole lot of scams happening on Instagram. So I think that's one of the things that made that one so unique. That one worked so well was because it was running around on a platform that sort of thing isn't rampant, because it's very hard to, you can't really click links inside of Instagram anyway, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Easily done on Twitter and Facebook. So Instagram is kind of insulated from that sort of stuff, in my opinion. But really, I think the scams that are going to get people the most are the ones that are really curated for them and seem possible. Those are the
Yeah.
ones that really you gotta worry about.
Yeah. And that's actually what was so unique about this particular scam on Instagram. It comes from a friend of yours generally because
Hmm.
they're the ones that got hacked first. And then it's not asking you to click a link. It's asking you to like copy something and like give them information. And like you said, what kind of information are they trying to get from you? And in this one, because you're not clicking, I think that really puts you kind of at ease.
Yes. Yes.
instead, like, because people are know that, okay, you shouldn't click links, from unsolicited sources, but this one is like, it's not even asking you to click a link, it's
Mm-mm.
just having you copy some information. And so I think that's one thing that, like, really helps perpetuate this one, that, it's just so outside of the norm of what you're, like, expecting to see. And especially there's been iterations of this scam that since, and it's like, "Hey, vote for me on this, like, thing," which seems even more plausible, because
Right.
people are signing up for contests all the time. So this, like, vote for me, you want to help out your friend. Um, and so kind of crazy. Are there any other, like, popular scams you've kind of seen around, like, via email or
You
Facebook
know
or
what?
anything?
One of the things that I like to talk about, do you remember the Nigerian prince
Oh,
scam from
of
like 20 years
course.
ago?
Yes.
That one actually worked really well, almost seemingly unbelievably. That one worked really well. Because again, it was like one of the first of its kind.
Right.
But so I always kind of remind people of that one. For those of you who gosh may not have been alive when that happened, you would get a random email from this guy with a very Nigerian name, and he says, "Hey, I'm coming to the United States. I need to move money, but because our government's, won't allow that, can
Corrupt.
I?
And yeah,
Yeah, it's corrupt, and I heard that you were a good person, and a
I heard
friend of
you.
yours gave me your email address. If you will email me your bank account and routing number, I will deposit my money into your account, and when I come to the United States, I will let you have $10,000 of it."
Awesome. I'm so on
Right.
board.
Who wouldn't do that, right? Most people don't know where Nigeria is on the map, the people who got
Right.
this email. And so it's like, why would anybody fall for that? But they did,
Yeah.
because it was just charmingly written as like, oh, you're a good person, that sort of thing. So I
Yeah.
kind of use that as my template, and I look for, okay, does anything that we're doing today here in 2023 look like that Nigerian prince email thing from 20 some odd years ago? And that's kind of a good judge to understand of, is this legit or is it not?
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite games to play. Every Tuesday I do an "Is it legit?" on my
Mhm.
platforms, and, sometimes they're really hard to spot. So, like, we know the flattery is one thing.
Mhm.
What about some of these scams that make them, like, particularly easy to fall for?
Sure, a lot of it just seems like it's mundane stuff. It's going to be, oh, click this link to vote for me for whatever, like HOA president or
Right,
whatever it is. Or it's going to be, hey, please leave a review for this product on Amazon. You probably just ordered a ton of stuff from Amazon because it was Prime Day. And so
right.
you're thinking, oh, sure, yeah, I'd probably need to send some vendor some love. Here's a 5-star rating for those socks that I ordered, that sort of thing. And you don't look at it too much, and you just
Mhm.
think, oh, of course I'm going to get this type of email. Of course this thing is going to happen. So
Yeah.
you just kind of go into autopilot, and you're just going to automatically click on that link, or you're going to call the phone number that somebody sends you, that sort of thing. So it's really the stuff that seems mundane. The best way that these people really engineer you to get you to do what they want you to do is to make it seem like it's absolutely normal. It's
Mhm.
absolutely ordinary what's coming. Same, it's kind of the same principle when somebody comes and knocks on the door of your house and they pretend to be the Amazon delivery driver. They want
Mm.
to look just enough like the real thing to get you to open the door so they can rush into your home and rob you, that sort of thing. So you're just looking for the things that say, okay, this does seem mundane, but just let me think about this critically for just a second. Why am I getting this email? What's really going on here? Did I actually order something from Amazon in this link that I should be giving, a review for? Those sorts of things. Just question why you're getting these things and what somebody may want from you.
Yeah, like, that's a good point with the, like, Amazon stuff. Almost all of us are ordering stuff on Amazon, so, an email that says, "About your recent Amazon order." Well, yeah, I
Yep.
probably had a recent
I have
Amazon order.
15,
Yeah.
recent Amazon orders. Yes, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So I would be expecting an email like that. The other thing I usually talk about is, how it makes you feel. Like, if it's something that, like, gets your heart racing and makes you want to react without thinking,
Yes.
that might be something to look out for as well, because you get these invoice where they email you and they're like, "Thanks for your purchase of like
Mhm.
$1,000, item." And you're like, I didn't buy something for $1,000. And, it makes you want to like react right away because you're like, uh, you know, I don't want my bank account to be drained of like $1,000. What's going on here? Um,
Right. Yeah. But your brain's amygdala kind of gets hijacked when things like that happen and you don't think straight. I
yeah.
actually witnessed someone in the middle of a gift card scam. I just happened to be at the local pharmacy down the road and there was this older lady on the phone. She was talking on the phone. And you know how when people talk on the phone and they repeat what the person is saying because they don't understand what's going on. She
Yeah.
just kept repeating, "You want me to do what now? What kind of card am I looking for?" She tried to like get people to help her find this particular type of gift card that they wanted. I'm watching all of this and thinking like, okay, this is very clearly a gift card scam that's happening.
Yeah.
But whatever that scammer told her had put a reasonably thinking person into a corner that they could only comply with what was going on. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, how could you be so stupid? How could you do that?" If they craft a good enough story and they scare you enough, you will be surprised at what you will do just to try to get this experience to end. Unfortunately, with this lady, she ended up purchasing the gift cards, even though people in the store intervened. I actually intervened. I admit I didn't do the best job of trying to talk to her. But she left. I think she purchased like $500 in gift cards for something and walked out the door with it.
Oh, that
And
breaks my
I
heart.
know, I know. And we're all standing there, me and the people in the store, and the folks in the store were just like, we can't do anything else because
Yeah.
they had actually gotten a memo about this sort of thing happening and how to spot it,
Sure.
which was
Yeah.
wonderful. But it was like it was heartbreaking because we were all trying, but
Mhm.
she couldn't listen to us. Somehow that scammer had only gotten her to listen to them and nobody else was going to get through.
Wow. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh. That's so crazy. That actually is, I mean, it's just very sad for her because she's
Hmm.
definitely out that $500. But it's encouraging to me to hear that places like, maybe Walgreens or wherever
Hmm.
are warned about these things and kind of warning signs like, hey, if they're buying gift cards, maybe
Right.
ask a few more questions. I think that's a really great
Hmm.
thing for these like retailers to do, especially when these gift card scams are so prolific. And for those of you who aren't familiar with these like gift card scams, they get an email. Like a lot of times, it'll come from like if you're an employee of something, it'll come from your boss, and it's like,
Hmm.
hey, I need you to. I'm writing from my personal email. I can't like I can't come to the phone right now or whatever, but I need you to go buy some
Yep.
gift cards for this like meeting I'm in, like, and I need it right now, etc. And so you think you're talking to somebody you actually know, and you go and buy these gift cards and you send it on to these people. You take a picture of like the card information,
Right, mhm, and
and
you
then you
send it to them. And you
yeah.
you brought up a very good point there. He's like, "I need this for a meeting that I'm in right now." So
Yeah.
there's this sense of urgency that you have
Mhm.
to act right now because most people wanna help. Most
Right.
people wanna do the right thing. They wanna do the best thing for their boss, that sort of thing. So when you have like, "Oh, here's this person, I'm contacting you in a different way. We're on a short time frame, and if you don't do this, there's gonna be a really big consequence." That's a great mixture to understand that that is a scam right there.
Yeah, for sure. So those are really good warning signs. What other warning signs should people be looking for when they're
Sure.
determining?
So I am pretty much skeptical of any email that I get that's going to come
Same.
in that seems unusual, right? And I know it's like, "Oh, Andy, you're so paranoid." I'm like, "Well, really?
Yeah.
Am I? Listen
Am
to these
I
stories we've
though?
just been
Am
telling."
I?
Right, am I really though? But yeah, it's pretty much like, okay, so my financial institution has sent me an email or sent me a text. They sent me a text on the phone that says, "Hey, we have detected maybe a fraudulent charge on your account. Please click this link so that we can get you talking to a customer service representative right away." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, something's happened with my bank account. Of course I want to do this." So those are the sorts of texts like I know that my bank is not going to do that. I know that they're not going to text me and say that.
Right.
I might get an alert through my banking app
Mhm.
that I trust. But
Right.
if I do get one of those alerts, I'm going to be like, I'm not going to go and trust the number that's been, texting me. I'm going to go look at the phone number on the back of my debit card. I'm going to call those people and say, "Hey, is there any shady activity going on?" No, there's not. And so, right away. So what I would do is really work to verify what's going on. Some things are going to be scams right away. And you're going to know, you just delete that email, you go on. But if you really think there's some credence to what's going on, don't click on any of those links. Don't reply back. Don't call the phone number that's in there. Call the numbers that you know. These are the numbers that are going to be on your debit card. They're going to be on any sort of like literature that came with whatever you bought, those sorts of things. Go through those normal channels and ask what's going on. I will say this. I had somebody close to me got confused about a charge that was on their bank account and Googled the phone number for their bank. And the ad that came up in Google was it was a trap. So
Mhm.
it was just like, hey, here's customer service for hometownbank.com. And so he didn't even click on the link. It was just like, oh, here's the number. I'm just going to dial it and call. And that was a learning experience for me way back in 2016 that the ads that are on Google searches can be fraudulent.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually it just happened. I just saw a news article, some guy in an airport, there was something going on with his flight, so he Googled, like, Delta's phone number, got a
Hmm.
wrong, Delta, and, like, was this close to giving them his credit card to book a new flight that was gonna be, like, so much more money, and he was talking to the wrong number.
Hmm.
And it was
Hmm.
exactly that. He Googles the support number, and it goes to somebody who is not part of the company.
Right.
Um, and was gonna
And
get into this kind of later in the episode, but, like, I would love to just touch on it now because it's so important. It goes along with what we're talking about, but, like, my parents, would do that, they're having a problem with their printer, they Google, like, the
oh yeah, it's always the printer.
HP printer, like, support phone number, and they get this wrong phone number, they call the number, the people they're talking to want to take over their
Hmm.
computer, how
Oh,
can
I
we
lost me.
okay, I still see you, hi, you're still here?
I'm sorry. Am I back with you now? I'm
Yeah,
so
you
sorry.
were never left, like
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I went black, you went black. Sorry there.
no, you're
So
good.
yeah, you were saying that I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no,
Start
you're
over again.
totally fine. But, like, when I'm, like, talking to my, like, aging parents who aren't as
Mhm.
familiar with online scams, they call the HP support number. HP support wants to, like, take over their computer and, like, install this stuff on their
Yep.
computer
Yep.
and charge them $500 to fix their printer and everything. Like, how can we really help, like, our parents and, and even our kids who might be, more susceptible to falling for these scams?
Sure. I just had an absolutely great interview with Maria Christina Hayden of Outfoxum, and we talked about online security for the sandwich generation. You and I are
Perfect.
in the sandwich
Exactly.
generation.
Yep,
Yeah, we're,
we
we're helping
absolutely
our
are.
kids and we're helping our parents at the same time
Yep.
because we're in this weird spot. Like our parents didn't grow up with the technology that we had. The
Mhm.
technology that we had when we were our kids' age doesn't exist anymore. And it's just this weird place to be. So
Yeah.
when talking with aging parents, just help them to understand that people they're going to get targeted simply because of their age. It's absolutely not fair. Like my father-in-law probably gets 15 scam calls a week. I mean, and it's because he answers the phone, and of course, you can
Right.
tell just by the way he speaks that he's an older person,
Yeah.
and so hey, that's great. This scammer is going to be like, oh, hey, this person matches the profile that we're looking for, and so they're going to keep that number, and then they're going to take their own little black book of numbers, and they're going to sell it to another group of scammers, and another group, and another group, and another group. So
Yeah.
just talk to them about, hey, there's this new scam that's going on. Usually I bring it up in, hey, did you see that news story about the poor lady in Idaho who just lost her life savings because of, this? Has anybody ever called you and asked you that sort of thing before? And so you're not really saying like, hey, mom, hey, dad, have you done anything dumb lately? Because you don't want to be disrespectful. But it's like, say, hey, here's this piece of information that I got in a news story. Did you happen to see this as well? And that opens up a really good dialogue to be able to talk about scams and the latest things that are going on. You can always forward those links to your parents as well. They'll let them read them at their own pace. So you don't have to have a conversation about it, but it's just another way to like educate them on what's going on.
Yeah, and that's actually a similar approach that I take, to my kids too. When I see like, a news article about a kid falling for like a sextortion
Yeah.
scam or things like
Yeah.
that, and I say, hey, and it's not like an uncomfortable conversation where I'm trying to scare them about something. It's more like, hey, this is what's going on. What can you do to like make sure you don't fall for something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really just having that conversation and not being afraid to have it. As a matter of fact, just before we got on, you'd be proud of me. I talked to my son about if you ever see something on YouTube that you don't like or makes you feel uncomfortable, come and talk to me about it. Say the
Love it.
same thing to your parents.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of conversations that you have to have over and over again. You can't just have it once and say, "Oh, well, I did it, check it off."
Right.
It has to be something that you continually talk, because like how many times have you talked to your kids about emptying the dishwasher or putting
Right.
their bike away? You have to have those conversations over and over again, right? So have them with your kids, have them with your parents. One of the things that I got from my conversation with Maria Christina was that kids and older parents will respond the same way when there's a problem. They may be very reluctant to talk to you about it because they're going to be afraid to lose their technology. And I
Yeah.
knew that kids would act that way, but it was really interesting to hear that, my adult parent would probably act the same way. So I was like, oh, that's very interesting. So just try to talk to both generations and say, hey, let's just have open conversations about what's going on. Because at the end of the day, we're both on the same team. We
Right.
both want to enjoy the internet. It's our family versus, the digital world, and we're going to win this thing. So, get them on the same page with you, talk to them continually about it, and share any sort of pertinent news that comes out.
Yeah. That great, great, great advice. So what are some other good rules of thumb that can help you save you from yourself?
Yeah. Um, what I would do is, I've always just been kind of a secretive person, so I assume that everybody just thinks like I do, which is
Right.
not right. Actually, most people don't think like I do. But just say to yourself, what information am I giving away here?
Yeah.
What's the bad thing that could happen? Play devil's advocate with yourself. If I send, this person my email address, or if I send this person my phone number, that sort of thing, what could potentially happen here? So
Mhm.
that's why I'm going to want to just really keep all of my information close to the vest. And I'm going to be the person who wants to make sure that I keep my stuff private. If I want to have a conversation, like with you one on one and, the parking lot at Target or whatever, that's great. But like anything that's going to be digital it's always going to be there. That
Yeah.
email is always going to be there. That post is always going to be there, those sorts of things. So just understand the value of your personal information and why you really truly need to keep it private.
Yeah, for sure. And along with that, I've talked in the past about um personal information, like even when you're sharing like on Facebook, those
Mhm.
quizzes. One of my favorite, I think I've shared this one where it was like has a bunch of like, your favorite color, your blah 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 blah. But like all the answers were
Yep.
like, don't give away your
Yes, that was a
password
good one.
information. But that's
Mhm.
some people that aren't really thinking about when they're, trying to just share their life. They're accidentally sharing this like personal identifiable
Right,
information. So,
right.
let's talk about kind of best practices there. What kind of
Mhm.
stuff should they keep private if they're not really
Sure,
thinking
sure.
that far?
Sure. And we'll start with kids. Your kids, tell them to keep, whether they're online or who they're talking to, their full names, their address, what school they go to, phone numbers, all that sort of stuff is personal private information. Kids don't need to be giving out that sort of information because as parents, they are under the age of 18. They can't sign legal documents. We will have to be involved in some way, shape, or form. So tell them not to give out that sort of information. With adults, just understand that your information can be used. One piece of information here and there can be used to create a profile on you. As a matter of fact, data brokers are working, I swear, 24/7 trying to build these massive profiles on us to sell to other people so that, we can get scammed or whatever it is. So, understanding that, okay, I may have posted my, email address here. Well, on LinkedIn, I'm sharing, where I work. And on Facebook, I'm sharing my hometown. So if I go to LinkedIn and there's my personal email address and there's my hometown, well, that's a whole lot of information that people can use to find me on Facebook. They can find me on Twitter. They can, kind of narrow it down where I am. So you got to understand that the internet is 360 degrees and you can see one way and everybody else can see in the other way. So understanding that a little piece of information here and there is going to add up to something eventually. And that's hard. That's not really fair for us because we want to share who we are. We want to share, why we're creative, what we love, what we don't like, that sorts of things. But when it comes to our personal information, that's just stuff that we have to keep, off the internet, that sort of stuff. Like personally with the Secure Dad, I don't even share like the names of my, the name of my son, my wife, my pets, those sorts of things, because that's just really private stuff that one, I just want to insulate my family from, but
Yeah.
also because that information could be used against me and it could be used against them. And I don't want that.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there other, like, best practices, that people can, like, adopt on their online accounts, that can help keep them a little bit more secure on that?
Yeah. Any sort of I like to use, and this is not an ad. I actually like to use Delete Me, which
Yeah.
deletes my personal information from all of these data broker sites that I talked about
Yeah,
earlier.
I've seen you talk about that before.
Right. And so data brokers will, buy information from like our credit card company. I think some states DMV actually sells your information to data brokers as well. So your information is out there floating around. And so you can actually try to take some of that back by using a service like them. And I really want to go further into that, but that's
Mhm.
something that you can use to have on your side. You can also make sure that you have two-factor authentication set up. So in case you do, I've had this happen to me not long ago. I got an email saying that I was trying to change my Instagram password,
Mm,
or it was came from a different device or something like that. I was like, well, no, that is not happening. So those are the like setting up two-factor authentication. Getting a company that's going to help remove your information online is also going to be good. But I really think the best thing that we can do to stay safe online is to be mentally sharp.
yeah.
And that's not a service that we can sign up for. That's not, something we can download to our computer. That's just us being vigilant. And at the end of the day, that's the greatest place to start.
Yeah, and actually, so as somebody coming from the corporate IT world, that's one thing that we promote a lot. Like the weakest link in your whole
Mm,
company is the
yes.
people, and so making sure that there's like security awareness training in the workplace is something that I've promoted for sure.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
like, so I kind of translate that into the home security awareness training for the
Right.
home. We really need to, you should create a course for security awareness training for the home and sell that because I think it's so important for families to really grasp those concepts and just to be aware of the scams that are out there because as you're more aware then you are more vigilant. That's why I do the is it legit, so people are really critically thinking about that.
Right. And you got to understand that, you may think, well, I'm not an interesting person.
Yeah.
I'm not a millionaire. Why would anybody ever want to target me? And the scammers work because they hit 10,000 people a day. And they
Hmm.
only have to hit 15 or 16 to make more money to do it all over again tomorrow. So you're just kind of a part of this bigger scheme that's going on and don't really take it personally because it's not really meant to be personal. You're
Yeah.
you're just a name on their list. You're a phone number, email address on their list. That's all it is.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up because that is one of the excuses I hear the most, like, "Oh, who's going to attack me? Like, I'm nobody." And
Mhm.
like, no, they're not trying to specifically attack you. They don't care who you are, you know.
Right.
They've got a whole company of people trying to attack, and they've got you know, programs and things on their side to, do it at scale. Even with social engineering, where they're really highly targeting somebody. It's not that they're targeting you, they just were able to find information about you that they could
Right.
use.
Right. Yeah, you just happen to have the most information out there, so you were the easiest target.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, no, they don't care about you. You are right about
Mm-mm.
that. But
Mm-mm.
so let's talk more about, I mean, we've already touched on it a little bit, but social engineering. So what else
Mhm.
like are people using social engineering? How are they applying that to attack you?
Sure. So, kind of like how we started, the best scams work because they make the most sense. And so if somebody is like genuinely targeting, me, for example, because they want to take over like the securedad.com, that sorts of thing, they're going to look at, what I'm doing on social media. They're going to look at what I like to do, what I talk about. They're going to look at, what's on my shelf over here to try to understand a little bit more about me, that sort of thing, because they are going to try to create a profile for their scam that seems like something that I would want to be involved in. And that's social engineering, is using all these different elements to get somebody to go along with whatever your scam is. So that's why I really have to be vigilant about those sorts of things, and why I encourage everybody else to be vigilant about those sorts of things. Your job may get you targeted. You're going to make it a bank, and you're not exact, but you maybe work just one level under from that person. So those are going to be the types of social engineering that they're going to kind of use to say, oh, okay, this person works at this bank. They're the stepping stone to where we need to get to. So
Mhm.
how do we get to this person? There's actually um, a really good social engineering example from a few years ago where I think like a huge amount of information was stolen from Sony Pictures because a particular group went into LinkedIn and they found like an entire department for Sony, and they used each other's emails against each other and all the names that were connected, and ended up with like a couple hundred gigs of information from Sony Pictures a few years ago, because they were all pretending to be somebody else. And
Yeah.
it just seemed like it was normal. You don't think a lot of people, they pick up the phone and they hear this, somebody calling it a scam call, and they say, "Oh, this is somebody calling from Windows. We know that your computer is messed up."
Yeah.
Well, okay, I don't have a Windows computer. Also, Windows is the name of the operating system. It's Microsoft. Those are the
Right.
people that, so they think that these scams are going to be really simple and easy. Some of them are, but
Yeah.
some of them are going to use a very high level of sophistication to try to get information from you. Maybe you're the in target, or maybe you're just that stepping stone to somebody else. So think about your profession and how that can kind of be used against you, what people can just assume based on what your job is, and they can build a whole profile to social engineer you to get you to do whatever it is they want you to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And once they have that foot in the door, like you're saying, they can use everybody kind of against each other where it's like, oh, with those gift card emails, like, hey, I am so and so your boss. I already talked to Jennifer, your
Hmm.
coworker, so they're name dropping
Yep.
these other people that you definitely work with, and really brings the legitimacy to it,
Right.
to a
And you
higher
want that
level.
promotion better than this fictitious
Right.
Jennifer. So, or the real
Yeah.
Jennifer. So you're going to like do whatever it is. Oh no, she's not taking this from me.
Right.
And so they get your ego engaged too. That's another way to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, when they get that foot in the door with, like, one department, then it's easier to kind of perpetrate into, like, higher level security, and go up the chain that way. So,
Hmm.
yeah, super, um, super interesting. The other thing I wanted to mention about that, when you're talking about how they're calling you based on things, we were just talking about before, the show started, that, about trademark.
Hmm.
And I got a phone call from, and it looked legitimate, from like the US trademark organization. And and I'm talking like, they're asking me these questions about my application. And I'm like, the whole time I was like, this doesn't seem right.
Mhm, mhm.
And it was just, but they had a lot of information. But then, like, some of the questions they're asking me, I'm like, you don't need to know that. Like,
Right.
why are you asking me that? That's like,
Yes.
that has nothing to do with what we're trying to accomplish here. And
Mhm.
so, like, making sure you're like, why would you need that information
Right.
for what we're doing here?
Right.
Is another critical question I think you should ask yourself.
Oh, yeah, it's like, why does this person want anything from me? I'm automatically gonna be skeptical of that, but,
Yeah,
what a lot of people don't realize about that particular process is it's all open and out there.
right.
There's just a lot of free open source information about us that's out there that can be used against us to make things look legitimate.
Yeah, for sure. Is another like legitimacy thing I think that we're running into now, because a lot of times it's so easy to spot a email scam where there's punctuation and grammar mistakes and things
Right,
like that.
right.
But like with ChatGPT and things like AI making
Mhm.
that um so much better. What are your thoughts on that and how that's kind of going into scams?
Yeah, that's we could spend an hour just talking about how
Yeah.
AI is going to make things harder for good people like us. But yeah, because it was always this kind of cliche, whatever scam email you're going to get is going to come from another country and it's going to have bad grammar and the punctuation's going to be bad. So that's how you know it's a scam. That
Right.
was legitimate. What I learned, working at a Fortune 500 company
Yeah.
was like, hey, this is how bad it's going to look. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, this should be completely easy to see. But now that we have Chat GPT, now that we have all of these other things, they can just kind of plug in, write me an email about this to sounds professional or something that sounds friendly. And the, AI is going to just generate this stuff for them. And they don't have to worry about the punctuation. They don't have to worry about the spelling. It's all going to be done for them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it just kind of goes back to this whole mental awareness that we had of what does this person want from me? Am I comfortable giving out that sort of information? Does this go against like my personal boundaries of information sharing? And that's going to be something that you can always keep. That's going to be something that's always going to be in your mind, in your realm of thinking. So really, it's going to be left up to us. And I will say that smart people like us make the wrong decision every once in a while. We get tired, we get upset. We're not thinking in our right mind. So I will say probably what you need to do for many other reasons is don't check your email after 9 p.m. Like if
Smart.
you are tired and you are worn out, that's not the time to check your email because Murphy's law here is going to be that's how they get me is because I'm going to be half awake or I'm going to be tired from playing outside with my kid in 95-degree heat and I'm not going to
Right.
be thinking properly and I'm going to click the wrong link. So like just put yourself set yourself up for success mentally and physically. Don't check that email after 9 o'clock. Make sure that you're thinking clearly about stuff. And if you do and if something looks weird, just mark it as unread and leave it. Don't
Mhm.
click on any of the stuff. Just say I'm going to come back to this when I feel like I can give it my full attention. And
Yeah.
that will probably save you a lot.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Like, when I am tired, I exactly right. I'm not thinking properly, and, you'll be more susceptible. And so, the comments on that viral reel that I did, a lot of them were like, I was dealing with, my dad's
Right.
funeral. Like, I had other stuff going on in my life,
Hmm.
and I wasn't really paying attention to what was being asked of me, and that's how they got me.
Right.
And so I think exactly what you're saying, like, anytime you're like, huh, is this like something like, when the little hairs on the back of your neck stand up and you're like, hmm,
Hmm.
like, maybe put a pin in that until you can
Right.
like really think about it.
Right. You talked about, dealing with a funeral. There is a really old it's not really a scam, it's really more of a crime that when somebody dies, their, funeral information is posted in the newspaper. It's posted somewhere. So, when people are distracted and they are going to the funeral of a loved one, everybody knows that they're going to be at that church and they're going to be dealing with that funeral. So their home is left wide open. And so I can't tell you, it's horrible, but people's homes get robbed when they're at the funeral of their mom, their dad, their husband, their wife, whatever it is. I've actually been asked to go and sit and watch houses during times of funerals to make sure that everything was okay. So that, predates technology. That
Yeah.
sort of stuff has been out there. That same type of scam lives on. It's going to live on in digital. It's going to live on wherever. So you got to understand that these are just humans trying to take things that you have. It's humans hurting other humans. The technology doesn't always matter. So it's good to understand it at a very basic level, because no matter how sophisticated it gets, it all still comes back to those same core things.
Yeah, well, and I love that you brought that up because that can absolutely still be perpetrated with technology because people are posting on Facebook, and they'll maybe make it a public post. Hey, dad died. The funeral is going to be here at this time. Like
Right.
I've seen those posts a whole bunch of times, and you're exactly right. That's leaving their homes like wide open during that time frame. Or you can see the people who are coming in from out of town, like, oh, I know their like cousin.
Hmm.
Okay, they're going to be gone for a few days, because they're going to be attending this funeral that's in another state. But that's something that like I say, we're sharing
Hmm.
without really thinking about the
Right.
implications of
Of
sharing that information.
Right. Of course, you want people to understand that your loved one is passed, and if they want to come and pay their respects, that's something, or at least just let them know that this person has moved on, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean that is the core of open source intelligence, and that's all that stuff that's out there that can be used against us.
Yeah. Another thing that I we haven't mentioned here is like when I'm on vacation, I don't
Hmm.
post anything that I'm
Good.
on vacation until I
Good.
am back from vacation. I'm like, "Hey, we're all here in Florida. Our home's totally wide open. Go
Yeah,
check it
yeah,
out."
exactly, exactly. I went to Disney a couple years ago, and I started sharing pictures like weeks after I got back,
Right.
and I got this message from somebody who followed me, like, "How dare you post this picture? You talk about not sharing, pictures while you're on vacation and stuff." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm sitting in my house right
Right.
now. This is 3
I've
weeks
been
ago."
home for
But he
3
had just
weeks. When?
assumed that I was sharing it in real time, because
Yeah.
that's kind of the public perception that, oh,
Right.
this is where Andy is right now. He's standing here with Kylo Ren in Star Wars World,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So yeah, there's you definitely want to make sure that, especially since we're in the middle of summer right now, if you're going to go on vacation, don't share pictures publicly on social media. My suggestion always is have a text group of people. Though, like, as a matter of fact, on that same Disney trip, I started texting my mom and dad like every day at lunch. I was like, "Hey, this is what we've done. These are our fun pictures." So that gave me that sense of being able to share and bring them in on it and feel good about it, but also know that it wasn't online. And of
Right.
course, my family knew that they were not to share these pictures publicly either.
Sure.
So that was just a good way to kind of handle that.
Yeah, yeah, I love that because then you're still like and then you can take those texts and, like, repeat that, like, for social media, after
Yeah.
you've returned, because sometimes, I come home and I'm like, "I don't remember what we did," but but I can go back and look at those that I shared in real time and then,
Hmm.
share that, at a later date, so, yeah,
Yep.
totally love that. Um, I did wanna talk about another scam that I've been seeing, especially with YouTube channels,
Mm.
and because it really surprised me that one of the YouTube channels that I totally follow is Linus Tech Tips, and
Hmm.
Linus Tech Tips got hacked, and
It did.
I'm like, "A tech channel that got hacked?" I'm like, "I have to know exactly what happened here." And what happened, they have two-factor authentication, they have all the things. And what happened is they got an email like that looked like somebody wanted to sponsor some content on their
Hmm.
video, and they downloaded like a contract, and the contract PDF basically took all of like, so if I'm on my computer and I'm logging into YouTube, I'm automatically logged in. I'm here. I'm there.
Hmm.
Like I
Hmm.
don't have to put in my credentials. And what this program that was embedded in the PDF did was take those tokens that are embedded in the browser
Right.
that you have and allowed them to copy that information. So they didn't have to even have the password. They didn't have to use the two-factor authentication. They were just in. And so, like, do you want to talk about something like that? Like,
Well, no, I mean, I think you've got it. Well, it was a big learning curve for me to understand that PDFs could be weaponized against you. I didn't
yeah.
think that that was possible. And so pictures can also do the same. Any sort of attachments, there are actually some that are super complicated. If you open an email,
Mhm.
they've got you, but that's high end stuff. But yeah, no, what you're saying is that they clicked on it and all the stuff from their browser was immediately taken, and they were able to have their site taken over. In that particular case, I would say for me, if I got somebody who wanted to sponsor my show and they went ahead and sent me a contract, I wouldn't even entertain it. I
Yeah.
would say, "Who are you? What do we want to talk about? Because I don't know if you're right for my audience." Because
Right.
I'm very protective, just like you are,
Same.
of
Yeah.
your audience. You like these people, trust us, so we need to make sure that anybody who comes on this show is going to be a good quality person. So that might be a way. That might just be a general rule. Don't open up a PDF. Don't open up an attachment unless it is. As a matter of fact, I got an email today that had an attachment format, and I was like, man, I don't know what this is. And I probably spent about a good 20 minutes to realize it actually was legitimate. And that was 20 minutes of my day gone,
Yeah.
but I was okay,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
I'm okay. Everything's fine. So yeah, to me, it was kind of worth those 20 minutes because I learned a little bit more about myself and those sorts of things. But yeah, any of those attachments, it's a lot of times it's things that you just can't even think of. Like
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to weaponize a PDF like that. That's
Right.
beyond anything I know how to do. But just know that it can happen. Learn from, you see that in the news, you got to learn from it and take that into your own personal life and say, well, I might not be the shiniest target out there, but I might be somebody else's stepping stone to get there. So I need to be vigilant for me and my family.
Yeah, absolutely. With those like weaponized attachments too. So, a lot of these invoices that our people are getting is usually like an attachment like, "Oh, hey, thanks for your purchase," and
Hmm.
there's a PDF attachment, and the email doesn't have a lot of details. So you're like, "What invoice
Hmm.
is this?" And so you want to open it, but yeah, those PDFs can be super dangerous. So definitely don't open the attachment.
Hmm.
Kind of vet that before. But you're talking about like the 20 minutes you spent trying to vet this email. And there, in IT, you've got this like curve where it's um, uh, security versus convenience.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
if it's like really inconvenient, it's probably really secure. But so the more secure you get, the less convenient you get. So
Exactly.
when you're talking about like 2FA, yes, it's a pain, and I have to pull up my authenticator codes and everything.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I tweeted yesterday. It was like, man, I understand. I see the value in two-factor authentication, but man, is it annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worth it. It's absolutely
Right.
worth it though.
Yeah, and, I will say, again, from the IT world, um, the worst offenders of, like, not of pushing back against, like, having two-factor authentication were, like, the CEOs of the companies that we were
Yeah.
working with, um,
Uh-huh.
and so it was like, they're like, "Yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that." And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Really?" Like, 'cause this is, like, your entire business.
Yeah, your entire life's work here could be taken away in the email. I think I
Right.
would be careful about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but with two-factor authentication, I wanna mention there was a lot of, hubbub, I guess,
Hmm.
about, like, security cameras getting hacked,
Yes,
and,
yes.
let's touch really quickly on kinda how those, kinda came about, and,
Sure.
like, the big thing was, like, people were like, "People are talking to my kids through the security cameras,"
Yeah,
and the yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there was a case in Tennessee where a guy got in and was talking to a young lady, and she's like, "Who are you? What's going on?" And the guy's like, "I'm Santa Claus," and it was really weird. In this particular case, Nest cameras were supposedly hacked. They actually technically weren't because people didn't change their passwords. So Nest is owned by Google, and so
Mhm.
there's a whole like data breach from somewhere where everybody's Google email or Google password was somehow doxed in this breach. So people just went in and started going through the Nest stuff. Not only are they getting your email or their calendar, they can also get to your home security cameras. So that's what was happening. It was really just almost this, hey, let's all just cross-reference these email addresses and these passwords, and let's see if they opened up this Nest stuff. And sure enough, for thousands of people, that's what the case was. So it wasn't necessarily anything that Google did. It was people weren't using different passwords or using different email addresses. I think it comes back to don't put all your eggs in one basket. I have a lot of my stuff segmented out. So if one thing goes down, it does not affect this, or if this goes down, it does not affect that. So that way, you can just kind of have like a built-in almost like blockchain
Yeah.
of how you have things done, so that if one of these companies has a big data breach, they're not going to get everything. So you can just make sure that you use different vendors that you like, that your stuff works together. And that's a good way to kind of help with that. Another big tip that I have for people is I am not a fan of putting security cameras inside of your home, because that's really intimate. That's
Yeah.
the sort of stuff that is really going to bother you. I think you should have security cameras on all the exterior entrances to your home to cover people coming up to it and that sort of stuff, because that's how they get into your home for a robbery. But if it's that inside, like if it's your kid's bedroom or if it's your bedroom, like that's an intimate space, and
Hard
that's not
pass.
where a camera, yeah, that's not where a camera needs to be. Even if you're just monitoring your toddler sleeping at night, that sort of thing, don't do that. In my opinion, just have the old school, baby monitor. That's usually enough to help you go.
Worked
But
for
yeah,
me when
just
my kids were little.
right. It worked in the 80s and 90s. It'll work today, that sort of thing. Yeah, but yeah, keep just understand where you're putting these cameras in your home, because they could, inadvertently end up spying on you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And like you said, it's not really they're not hacking necessarily your specific account, or they're not
Mm-mm.
hacking Google or anything
Right,
like
right.
that. They are
Hmm.
just, try like I have a whole database of emails and passwords that match, and I'm gonna try it everywhere, you know.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. And that's why also you need to have strong, unique passwords. You don't repeat passwords, those sorts of things. I'm sure your audience knows not to do those things, but we'll just briefly mention it.
We can mention it again. Like you said, with the toddler, not the toddler, but like, the kid
Yeah, yeah,
empty
you got
the
to have that
dishwasher, you gotta
conversation over
keep
and over
having
again,
that
right?
conversation. Like, get it through the brain. Um, I think you have to hear something like 3 times before it really sinks in anyway, so just
Hmm.
we'll keep harping on it.
Right.
But so the most secure password, like if you wanna, like, have the same password for all your other accounts and it's a huge pain, what is the one password that you should have different from everything else?
Oh, so what's the one account that should always have a different one?
I would say your banking,
For sure.
for sure.
That needs to be the one, because you need to be able. Money solves problems, and you want to make sure that if you have a problem, that you're going to have the money to be able to take care of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the one that I think should be, because I think people, it's obvious that hackers are going to go for bank account numbers. It's probably going to be one of the ones that is most highly sought after. So it's going to have that really long, unique password or passphrase. It's a full sentence, or you just copy a paragraph out of War and Peace, and that's what your password is now.
Uh, that's a really good one. I'm going to disagree just slightly. I
Okay.
think it's your email, because your
Okay.
email is basically your keys to the kingdom. I can hit a forgot
True.
password link
Very true.
on anything. If I'm an email, then I can get access to all the other accounts because I can
That's
do a
right.
forgot password.
Right, and that's why a lot of people say don't use your email address as the two-factor authentication. Make sure it's either going to be text, or it's going to be whether you have a third-party app that has your codes on it, that sort of thing. But yeah, that is good.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. We're talking about with two-factor authentication. What do you think is the best method of two-factor authentication? Because there's several different ways.
Yeah, there's actually, I don't know if I'm necessarily educated enough to say that. So yeah, I know for sure that email is probably not the best way to get that done.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
smart.
whether or not if it's a third party app, there's a lot of people out there who are smarter than me that can help walk you through that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's really just no, don't use email. That's the one
Yeah.
that, if anybody, like you just said, if somebody hacks the email, they've got everything. So don't use that one.
Right, right. That's and I hadn't actually thought about that in the two-factor authentication sense. So I'm
Hmm.
glad that you brought that up. But I would say definitely an authenticator app instead
Yeah,
of like getting texts because again, your text could be intercepted. So I would probably skip text codes and email codes and just go with an authenticator app like, Google Authenticator, totally free.
right. Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah, and that's
um
free to use. That's totally free to use.
Right, right. It's a pain, we know,
Oh,
but
hey, here's a funny story about that app. I got a new phone earlier this year, and I transferred everything from one iPhone to the other iPhone, and I deleted the old iPhone, and I didn't change any of my Google Authenticator app stuff over,
oh,
and that
no.
was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
So if you get a new phone, make sure you transfer the Google Authenticator stuff over before you delete the old one.
I literally have a reel I mean, and I made this maybe, like, 2 years ago, so I maybe need to share it again, but it was like, the one thing you forget to do when you're getting a new phone is transfer your 2FA accounts.
Yep. Yep. Learn from my mistake, y'all. Learn from my mistake.
'Cause that is a huge pain to regain access to those accounts when you don't have access to those codes, so,
Hmm.
um, so I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah. Live and learn.
To wrap up, what do you think if a person had time to just really only do one thing to help inoculate themselves from falling for any scam, like what is the like one thing you would recommend?
Sure. I would recommend that you be vigilant and question anytime anybody reaches out to you and wants something. Obviously, if it's your brother or your sister, that's different. But somebody you don't know, a company that you barely do business with, somebody that says they know you on LinkedIn, that sort of thing, always question that because you can have all the great technology in the world, but if your brain isn't ready to defend yourself from this sort of stuff, it doesn't matter.
You know what? And I'm gonna add on to that, even if it is your brother or sister, because
Yeah, that's true. I'm assuming everybody's has a good relationship with their brother and sister. So that is true. That is true.
well, but if they got hacked or something and it's coming from them, or even with through social engineering, I'm getting an email
Mhm.
from my brother saying, I like to tell this story. My grandma got a phone call from my brother, um,
Mhm.
who said he was like in an accident or in jail or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And and my grandma was literally like walking out the door to like send
Sure.
money to my
Yeah.
brother who was in jail, like, "Hey, grandma, this is like, my brother's name." And
Mhm.
so my grandma who was a judge, she's a commissioner, so she's a lawyer and a judge, so she's a smart lady. And she calls my sister-in-law and is like, "Hey, so how's everything going?" Like, didn't wanna throw my brother under the bus, like,
Right. Right.
like, and tell his wife that he's in jail, but, like, wanted to, like, check out, like, what was happening, and so then
Mhm.
my sister-in-law called my brother and was like, "Hey, you might wanna call your grandma because, like, I just got a really weird phone call from her." And so my
Yep.
brother called, and they were able to determine, he's not in jail.
Right. Right.
But so even if it is from your brother or from your grandson, and if they're wanting something from you, question it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. I had two crisis managers come on my show to talk about virtual kidnappings and all that sorts of stuff, and it was fascinating. I had to really like reel myself in because I was like, okay, yeah, and how do they do that, and why do they do that? Oh, that's fascinating. Oh, if we did it this way, it would be even harder to do because I'm sometimes fascinated by like how much effort people put into these scams that
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, I have to cautiously admire their effort that they're putting out here. But yeah, those calls happen all the time. Usually with those, the crisis managers who I had on my show, they actually told me in their experience, just hang up.
Yeah.
Because if it is legitimate, if you have somebody who has been kidnapped, they are going to call back.
Right.
So if it's, you get one of these calls, hang up. They probably won't call back, that sort of thing. So chances are that these things aren't real, that sort of stuff. But that was one of those situations where, somebody, panicked, and they were given a short time frame to do something, and that matches that pattern of how these particular type of scams work.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Andy. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, or uh,
No, I mean, I've had a really good time talking about this and a whole bunch of other stuff that we kind of meandered and caught along the way, and this was a lot of fun. If you want to know more about me and what I'm doing, go and check out thesecuredad.com. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of the usernames. The Secure Dad. I have my own podcast. It's the Secure Dad Podcast, in which you can hear Sarah Kimmel on 2 of those episodes.
yeah, and actually, I'm gonna totally check out that kidnapping episode because that sounds
Yes,
fascinating.
it is.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, and we will see you guys next time.